Good morning. It's truly an invigorating time to be at Texas Christian University. This is definitely a period of dramatic transitions, new beginnings, and great expectations. We've seen a remarkable period of growth and achievement over recent years. Now, our Board of Trustees has approved a new vision for the Academy of Tomorrow. We are working to recreate and create, in some instances, this academy, to create the TCU that will best prepare our students for a future that is changing at warp speed, all while holding true to the person-centered traditions and values that really make TCU unique. So it seemed appropriate to me to take a new direction with this year's opening academic ceremony. You know, I get tired. I never like any speech I've ever heard in my whole life. I've never heard a speech I thought was too short, and so I don't like giving speeches either. And so I thought, let's do something different, and let's have some people, voices of students, faculty, and staff come up and talk to us today. People ask, how did I pick these people? There was no big scientific thing to it. I didn't try to pick one person from every area or get every college representative, every blah, blah, blah representative. No, I didn't do that. I picked people who aren't afraid to say their mind, and mainly pick people who have, in the past, have told me I was wrong. And so, particularly Dr. Keene, but not to name anybody, and so because I knew they would not be afraid to tell you the truth. And so if you want a speech, which I know people are dying for speeches, there's one, as soon as this is over, the speech I would normally give, the fascinating, enthralling speech I would normally give is on the website. Go to it and be enthralled. Thanks to each of you, of the people on the panel, for serving on the panel. I appreciate that very much. What I'd like to do is ask different people to answer different questions and then interact with each other during it also, keeping in mind that we don't want to make this 5 hours, and so I've assigned questions to certain people. Let's start with this one. Please share the most positive thing about your experience at TCU thus far. And I'd like to have Phil Hartman, Sue McClellan, Vanessa Norris, and Mike Marshall answer that one, starting with Vanessa Norris. So Vanessa, what's been the most positive part of your TCU experience, please?
Well, the most positive part of my TCU experience is actually a combination of several things. So first, that would be being able to build relationships with faculty and staff members who saw strengths in me that I necessarily did not see. And so those staff members have been able to challenge me, have been able to push me past my limits, and I've grown in confidence since I've been able to build those relationships with them. The second part of my positive experience has come from international frog camps. So as a part of our first year experience program, I thought it was amazing to go to London as a freshman, not even setting foot on TCU's campus before, meeting other students, meeting faculty staff partners, and also exploring the history and culture of another country. And this past summer, I was blessed enough to be able to direct the frog camp in Spain. So, and I spent a week with you and other staff members, and that was an amazing experience, and I was able to study abroad when I hadn't been able to up until this point. So a combination of those things have made TCU an amazing experience for me, and I've grown so much from both of those things.
Thank you. Sue McClellan, what would your answer be on that?
Well, I grew up within 3 miles of TCU, so TCU's always been in my memory of some sort. But it was only when I stepped on campus as part of the TCU family that I began to really understand, what does that mean? And my positive experience is like Vanessa's, it's many and varied. I work in an office in Sadler Hall, but I'm encouraged to step out of that office to see what else is on campus and be part of it. I'm encouraged to attend Frog Camp, which has enabled me to meet faculty, staff that I never would have met. I'm invited to the Schieffer Symposium to hear Bob Schieffer moderate with his panel from across the United States. I'm encouraged to use the rec center. I can certainly have access to all of the athletic events, theater productions, art exhibits. Soon I'll be able to walk across the street to a newly fabulous renovated library. Anything I could possibly want is on this campus. How could that not be a positive experience?
Oh, wow, thank you. Michael.
Well, aside from meeting my wife, I would say, I would say unlike Sue's experience, my journey to TCU was much different. Born and raised in Ohio, went to school in Pennsylvania for my undergraduate work, and if you would have asked me almost 8 years ago if I would have ever seen myself in Texas, I would have said no way, no how. And so the most positive thing from my experience would be investment. And when I say investment, that means with all the faculty, so much that I've learned from several faculty members, from a professional, educational, spiritual, personal standpoint, to paying it forward to the students and allowing them to grow and realize their full potential. And it just becomes this big cycle, and we continue to preserve this positive legacy. So I would say investment. And then even from the institutional standpoint, we've invested so much in the buildings, so in buildings, people, and in the community all together.
Thank you. Phil Hartman.
Oh, I'll put an academic spin on this. I think it's the teacher-scholar model. A lot of institutions pay verbiage to that, but I think very few probably walk the walk as well as TCU does, recognizing that those are complementary and not competing activities. And interestingly enough, I think my most positive experiences have been on occasion off campus when I've gone to meetings, whether they be pre-health advisor meetings or they be scientific meetings. And the grass is not always greener on the other side. Meaning when you talk to colleagues, my initial reaction is, wow, they have so much time to do research in their laboratories. I would love to have that. But then I realized the realities that come with that. And I realized that TCU does balance in such a way that at least fits my needs and my desires, and has for over 30 years. The other thing I would say, although I've not been particularly good at this, is I think TCU provides opportunities to de-silo. Sometimes we don't take advantage of them, but those opportunities, I believe, are there to a much greater extent than most institutions.
Thank you. Okay, now, it's not all positive, so let's talk about some of the challenges. During your time at TCU, what is the greatest challenge you have ever faced, and did the university or the community help you meet this challenge? And we'll start with Austin Miner.
All right, well, the greatest challenge for me, during this stage of life, it's always hard to figure out what you actually want to do. And so coming in my freshman year, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And so that was the challenge. And then as far as TCU helping me with that, I think I talked to a counselor or maybe a professor or someone who told me that I ought to take this kind of comprehensive test, personality test and career test that was offered on campus. And they bragged about how expensive it was and how I was so fortunate to be a student here and take the test because people don't get to do that elsewhere. And so I didn't take it, and I guess there's still time. Well, I'm a senior now, but so maybe I should. But I should have done that 3 years ago because I think that would have helped me a lot. But beyond that, my professors have been great and really just guiding me and showing me, bringing out of me, I guess, what I'm really passionate about. And so that's been awesome. But in regard to that test, I think that freshmen should be required to do that because that would be wonderful. So that's my advice.
Austin, I know Austin really well. I thought your biggest challenge was going to be this. I thought you would say this. He came in with a girl from freshman year and she dumped him, and so I just wondered if maybe that would have been it.
That's not true.
Greg Stevens, what was your biggest challenge?
I was afraid I was going to get this question. So I'll answer it, but I want to preface my answer by saying this. None of us have the kinds of challenges that most of the rest of the world do. We live in a part of the world, and we have an occupation and an opportunity here that's just unheard of for most of the rest of the world, including many in our own country. So to even talk about the greatest challenges feels a little self-serving to me, a little selfish. But that having been said, I've probably experienced some of the same challenges, both personal and professional, that many of the faculty and staff and students here have. But the things that have been most challenging to me, I think, have come as I have gone beyond simply teaching technique in my classes and started to, over the last decade or so, started really trying to focus on the underlying principles of the things that I talk about, that I try to teach. And as I've done that, what I've discovered is that more and more my students come to me with challenges of their own. And then for me, the real difficulty is in how to help them. And those challenges can be professional, they can be personal, but the question then becomes, how do I help them understand how to apply the principles that we're talking about to make their lives better? And I've discovered as I do that some absolutely outstanding young people who really have their hearts in the right place, and who want to be partners with me in doing that. And that's been a tremendous challenge for me to go beyond the way that I was taught, as Robert Frost said, to go beyond my father's saying, to help other people around me to figure out how to improve, how to better their lives and the lives of those around them. It requires a certain amount of creativity and inspiration that doesn't come naturally to me, but that I've discovered that in concert with my students we can do. That's been the real challenge for me.
Rosangela Boyd, what do you think's been your biggest challenge? How long have you worked here, Rosangela? I mean, I know this, tell them. And what's your biggest challenge during that time?
Well, I've worked here for about 6 years now. One of the initial challenges was actually moving from faculty life for 15 years into Director of Community Involvement and Service Learning. So that was definitely something to get adjusted, and especially because of the responsibility that it takes. But in terms of challenges over the past 6 years, I would say that probably the biggest one was a couple of years ago. Due to state budgetary cuts, we lost 2 full-time positions in our office. So we went from 4 to 2, and as you can imagine, that can be pretty scary. And TCU helped our unit heads got together and helped us get financial assistance for 1 position. So we went from 25%, from 50% deficit, which would have been catastrophic, to 25%. And at the same time, my staff also came together and shared the burden and found ways to stay positive, keeping an eye on what we're here for. And because I think that the best thing about TCU is really its people, I felt that I could continue to carry our mission, and actually, as achievers that we are, we probably added 25% to our load, but that is thanks to the supporters that we had amongst faculty, staff, and the just wonderful group of students that we work with.
Thank you. This next question is a big one that's talked about a lot around campus, especially lately. And so I think it'd be interesting to hear the perspective from these 3 faculty members on this issue. And I specifically asked 3 faculty on this. The other thing, notice I'm not addressing anybody by their titles except for Reverend Kaufman, because that's always, I think, important. But because I'm just stressing that we're all up here together, so we don't have doctors, lawyers, whatever we all are. Okay, let's start with TCU has stated its desire to balance academics, student life, and athletics. Are we getting that balance correct? And if not, what adjustments need to be made in your opinion? Let's start with Rhonda Keene.
I asked for that. I told the Chancellor some time ago that it was very difficult for me to admit when I was not only wrong, but dramatically and drastically wrong. And the decision to invest in football, I have actually stood in most of my classes over the years, every possible public and private opportunity to say, this is the most foolish thing in the world. It won't help admissions. It won't help anything. I had grown up in the shadow of Razorback Stadium, and I thought, what are the Horned Frogs ever going to do? And I have learned so much. First of all, I really am always happy to say I'm wrong because it's such a common behavior. I have to be good at that. But I hope that, so without going any further, I'll say I think we've done well with football. I think it has not been a mistake. I think it has. I am amazed at the number of nursing students who tell me that they came here so that they could go to football games. I still don't quite get that, but they mean it. You know, and there's a lot of them we don't get, so that's okay. But what I would like for us to be able to do with that is think about the next things that we want to do, to decide on it with the same clarity and commitment that we did for football, and go after that. And I don't know what that is, but I have a lot of concern that the world is changing so quickly. I was struck by a comment that Noel made about the new commons, the need for relevance. And I think that's one of the things that we can pursue with the same enthusiasm and the same success that we pursued football.
Thank you.
I owed you that.
Thank you. No. Why don't you just pass it down? Let's go next to Linda Hughes.
All right. Thanks. I think, first of all, we have to ask a second question, which is balance right for whom? Is it for an internal audience, or is it for an external audience? Like Rhonda, I've seen, I'm not too worried internally. And I think it's a conversation we need to have. Are we wanting to define excellence in our own terms, in a particular position locally, and in relation to what makes this a unique institution? If we're also wanting the world to know that we've got the balance right, if we're wanting an external audience to look and say, yes, all of those things are in balance, I would say that I think maybe we have a growth opportunity to make more of the academic side, especially, I want to, and maybe this is natural, I'm a faculty member, but I think especially in terms of our ongoing, continuing, rank and file faculty members who are our most permanent members. I think the student excellence that we're getting is readily visible. People are aware of it. People are excited about it. I saw it in the Common Reading discussion group I read. But when I go out, I don't always have people aware of TCU as a place of excellence in the other side of what Phil talked about, the scholars side. And yet we have so much to celebrate. I think we're doing a better job of telling our own story internally, but I have a feeling that maybe the world could know more. And let me give you an example. He's sitting on the front row, and I hope he won't mind. It's Steve Quinn. I was reading the New York Times Sunday magazine in '08, and they're doing the 100 best ideas of the year. And I'm flipping the pages, and there's Steve Quinn, Texas Christian University, for his historical banking research and its applicability to the financial crisis in '08. And I just came to campus so proud and kind of puffed up, and I get to work with a colleague like Steve Quinn, and I didn't hear too much about it. And I thought, wow, there's a wonderful example. And Phil isn't the only, Steve rather, Phil too. I'm thinking about Phil and his genome work. But I have lots of examples, but I think we have an opportunity to let the world, if that matters to us, and it may not.
Phil.
So let me admit it wrong as well. I think it was about 15 years ago I read a letter to the editor of the Skiff, and I advocated doing away with football at TCU. And I suggested instead that we should plow our athletic resources into basketball and develop a really buffo basketball team. And my rationale is we could do that a lot cheaper than in football. You recruit one star athlete a year and you've got an NCAA Final Four team. So I was wrong about that. I'm going to focus things inward. I think Linda did a great job of talking outward. The balance that I'd like to discuss is the balance between co-curricular activities and academics. And I think that's a natural tug of war that can be very healthy, but sometimes can get out of balance. And that's a difficult thing to balance, and I'm not sure I have a solution to that. You'll notice that I use co-curricular. Those of you that have been around and been in student life know that we use co-curricular rather than extracurricular, because I think it appropriately reflects the importance that we as a TCU community recognize that outside of the classroom experiences have. You heard Vanessa talk about frog camps, and these sorts of experiences are really life-changing. The tug of war comes with academics, and I've told students when I talk to the incoming pre-meds during orientation, the best thing about TCU are the co-curricular activities and their diversity. The worst thing about TCU are the co-curricular activities and their diversity. And my point is, it's all about balance and finding a balance such that your academics you stay true to your academics while also embracing everything that TCU has. So I don't think that's necessarily a new problem, and I don't think it's even a problem, but it is a dynamic that I am very cognizant of and advising students about.
You know what I think in general? As long as we discuss these problems, they will never overcome us. Because it's when you ignore them and pretend like it's not happening, I think that happens. Okay, next I'm going to ask Greg Stevens a question, but then after Greg answers this, everybody just pitch in and make it more of a discussion. You know, it's feeling a little stilted. Okay, let's start with Greg. And as we contemplate an exciting future for the university, but also realize we live in uncertain times, and I think you were kind of hinting at that earlier, what do you see as some of the greatest threats to us as we move forward?
I'm not sure I can do anything other than stilted, but I'll try. Greatest threats. So we can think certainly about the world around us. There are tremendous challenges that await upcoming generations, but we've always faced challenges, and we've always found ways to deal with them. My concern is that we prepare our students to go out and do more than just earn a salary, but to have an impact in the world around them that's an impact for good, that's positive, that makes a contribution beyond simply holding down a job. Among the threats, I think, though, are that there is, in the environment around us, so I'm finding it hard to put this into words, but there are competing demands. You know, when I walk around campus on a very small scale, but still important, I think, when I walk around campus, I look around me, and there isn't the human contact that there used to be. I see people that are on their phones, or earbuds in their ears, or involved in things that separate us rather than unite us. And it's not that those things are bad, it's simply that they are a manifestation of literally hundreds of things that are taking us away from thought and care for the more important things of life. And the danger of that is that we leave the university, or those of us who are staying, we stay in the university, but we find ourselves moving into a future without having built the kinds of relationships that will drive change in the world, and without some unique capability to do that is part of the intention, I think, of university life. And so then we go out into the world, and because it's uncomfortable to do those things, we fall back on what is comfortable. We continue to involve ourselves in things that separate us rather than unite us, that take us away from careful consideration of the problems of the world around us, that demand our attention and our problem-solving capability, but that are so difficult to contemplate. I think the biggest threat is, it's so some of you are old enough to remember, like I do, Pogo. The biggest threat is what Pogo said. We have met the enemy, and he is us. We need to get beyond ourselves and figure out how to take this great gift that we have for a few years here at the university and turn it into something tremendous for the world around us.
Great, okay. Pitch in here. And threats, and also Reverend Kaufman and Noel, add in too.
I would say, again, Mike Marshall, I would say one of the threats that we face really is, which could be viewed as an opportunity, but that's technology. And when you look at access to higher education, individuals are trying to find ways to sort of accelerate or expedite the process to getting to the finish line and getting that degree and getting out there and getting a head start or a jump start. And so many of them are doing the whole distance learning, online education. And so trying to convey and persuade or convince people the importance of an on-campus experience or the value of the TCU experience is definitely going to be threatened. And so I think it's going to be important that we continue to be innovative, creative, ahead of the curve so that we can create an experience that can't be replicated through, digital or through technology.
Can I go? Well, I think there are a lot of external threats, but mainly I'd like to comment on some internal ones. And I think one of the greatest threats that we have internally is the temptation of relaxing and becoming complacent and enjoying too much our victories and the momentum that we are going on now, and not really look for ways to make TCU an even better place. Phil mentioned the tug between academic affairs and student affairs, and I think we have so much potential for integration. And if we join efforts and coordinate our efforts, we can definitely make inside the classroom and outside the classrooms activities work as complementary rather than in competition. And I know through service learning, we've proved that that is possible. I also think that we run the risk of not keeping our mission in sight and what kind of individuals we want students to be when they graduate from TCU and use other standards for success. And in that respect, I think we cannot just pat ourselves on the back for great work that we've done in some areas. For instance, there is a beginning. We have increased the percentage of students from diverse backgrounds amongst us, but we also have the responsibility to model inclusiveness day to day on our campus and make sure that every student feels that he or she has a voice. The same way in our work in community engagement, it's a beginning to take bus loads of students to volunteer in the community a couple of times a year, but it's even more important to prepare students for a lifetime of engaged citizenship. So I think as long as we continue to push and challenge ourselves and communicate and talk to ourselves and see each other as the power of this university, we'll be moving forward to an even better place. And I'm very excited to hear about the Academy for tomorrow because it has the right frame of mind of not just strengthening the experience for students today, but preparing the community leaders of tomorrow.
I have a couple. One I thought of that came to me naturally, and one actually a student mentioned to me when I was asking around a bit. The first is just plain off the Nicholas Carr visit and the Shallows, which is how are we going to develop the right kind of teaching and the right kind of curriculum in order to maintain and sustain that deep level thought, analysis, critical thinking that seems so vital if we're going to have the creativity and the reflectiveness and the persistence to solve our problems, both internally and externally in the students that we're training and who are going out into the world. And at the same time, to have the relevance, the adaptation to changing conditions, to new technologies, and so forth. I keep thinking about the mission statement, to educate individuals to think and act. Getting that dual purpose right, how to think creatively in depth and at the same time to have that kind of embodied active leadership. So that's just one thing. I think it's going to be an ongoing challenge to all universities today. The second one, I was asking some students, what is there anything you would change about TCU? And it was a very bright, very engaged student. And he said to me, I see a lot of inclusiveness in terms of who's coming to campus and so forth, but he said, I go into the student union to eat my meals, and I see us there all siloed. I see the Greeks sitting together, but they're not sitting with the non-Greeks. I see, other groups, ethnic groups sitting together, honors maybe sitting together, and non-honor students. And he said, I wish there were a way of making that inclusiveness real in daily activities. He's feeling there's something more that can be done. I mean, I just want to compliment you on what you've done here, which is to make us truly inclusive and interactive in terms of where we're coming from. The students are eager for that, and I will just add on to that one other thing. What about the diversity of low socioeconomic backgrounds? That's one of the crises in this country, is that only about 5% of our students come from low socioeconomic levels. It's so much easier to get to college if you come from an affluent background. What can TCU do, not only to get those students here, but to sustain them once they're here?
Just speak.
Okay.
Thanks.
As a student, one of the threats that I see is a loss of history and tradition amongst new students. So I believe that as our university gets more modern and as we instate new practices and we are innovative, I think one thing that we can do a better job of is making sure that our students are connected to our history, to our accomplishments, and to our traditions. For example, I know that Addison and Randolph-Clark started a university that was the first co-ed institution in the Southwest. But I wonder how many of students know that. I only know that because I'm an ambassador. So I wonder what the university can do to make sure that students are tied to the university, that they feel for pride and not only associated with athletics. So I'm not sure how that can be done, but I believe that if that balance could be found, then our students would feel a lot more personal connection to our university.
Well, I would just say that, our country is facing times unlike any time in the history. So our students come with those same stresses that they've come with their families. And just because they change addresses does not mean that they leave those problems at home. They come. And it takes all of us to recognize what it is they're facing, whether it be a housekeeper that recognizes that a student's behavior has changed, and so she tells the hall director, who tells Campus Life, who contacts the student, or a faculty member who recognizes a student's not attending classes any longer, and they follow up. Or from one office all the way up to the chancellor's office. We're all a part of this big picture that makes TCU who it is. And I think that part of our threat is in dealing with the world that we live in. Part of our strength is doing what we believe in, and that is to keep TCU tradition and caring about each other.
Probably time for one more comment. Anybody?
Was somebody talking down there?
Go ahead.
I just think that as we grow as a university, there's a temptation maybe to lose sight of individuals. And when I first came to TCU, the TCU that I've come to know and love is a mid-sized school with great athletics and fun campus environment, but where professors and faculty, everyone cares about students as individuals. And I think we're still that way, but I think maybe there's a temptation in the future as we do strive for bigger and greater things to forget that students come here because they're not just a number like so many people say about other universities, and people actually care about them here. So I think that's important.
This has been a great discussion, and I hope we'll all continue it on throughout the coming year. And that was my really reason for doing this. One, to get out of making a speech, but to point out that I think we need to have these discussions. I think they're important for us. This is invigorating. And I really, truly believe as long as we discuss all of our problems, none of them will ever overtake us. Because look at this. We have enough people just in this row, not counting me, that could solve these problems, let alone all the people out there and the people on campus. So I want to thank all of you. I want to say that, like Linda was saying, do you think we can make sure that such and such happens? Absolutely, I'm sure we can make it, because we're going to talk about it and we're going to solve the problem. We have enough people here that can do that. So I want to thank all the people on the panel for committing to do their part in making TCU excellent. And I want to thank you all for the time you spent today. Thank you.